call this meeting of the Parks, Recreation, and Arts Commission to order. City Clerk, would you please conduct roll call?
Commissioner Soto is absent. Commissioner Ward?
Present.
Commissioner Kucharski?
Present.
Commissioner Collier? Commissioner Barraza?
Present.
Commissioner Singh?
Present.
Commissioner Miller is absent. Vice Chair Dolan?
I'm here.
Chair McCoy?
Present.
We have quorum.
Thank you. We will now begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Will everyone please stand? Ready, salute. Thank you. We will start with the approval of the agenda. City Clerk, are there any changes or proposed changes to the agenda?
Yes, we have one change. Item number 12A, file ID 24-1126, regarding a hearing, motion to drop the threshold for the expanded access to arts and culture EAAC grant and emerging organization general operating support for emerging operations project support to 3.0. For clarification, the threshold is dropping across all 4 categories, not just the emerging category.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Singh. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. This item is approved. We will now move on to the approval of minutes. Are there any changes or proposed changes to the minutes from July 15, 2024?
There are no changes.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Hold on, I lost my place. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Ward. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Singh. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. This item is approved.
Chair, I will abstain. I was not present for those minutes.
On record, thank you. We will now move on to subcommittee reports. This item is a discussion item for the commission, and no public comments will be taken related to this item. Does the Cultural Arts Plan Subcommittee have an update it would like to provide to this commission?
Yes, thank you. In this subcommittee report, I wanted to cover 3 areas. The first is the subcommittee vacancy and upcoming work. We would like a commissioner to be added to the subcommittee to fill the current vacancy so that we can benefit from their perspective and contributions. The subcommittee will be working with the Fresno Arts Council to bring revised Measure P Art Grant guidelines to the September 16th commission meeting before they go to the City Council in October for final approval. In addition to the discussion at tonight's meeting, commissioners and community members are encouraged to contact Dr. Lilia Gonzalez-Chavez at the Fresno Arts Council directly with proposed modifications to the guidelines so they can be taken into consideration before the September 16th commission meeting. And for year 2, the grant types will be staggered so that either project or operational support grant applications will open this October, and the application period for the other grant type will follow in early 2025. The intent is still that eligible applicants can submit once in each category of grant. The second item is outreach efforts. We've connected with the Mayor's Office of Community Affairs Liaisons regarding outreach and facilitating a workshop to help let a broader range of residents know about the Measure P Art Grant opportunities and how to be eligible to participate. The Arts Council is seeking to develop a more diverse range of organizations willing to be fiscal sponsors to help bring in more applicants from traditionally underserved parts of the city. We request that commissioners who have connections with community-based organizations with reach into Southeast, Southwest, and Central Fresno coordinate with the Arts Council to help get information about the grant programs out to a wider audience. And the Fresno Arts Council will also request help from the grant recipients to reach a more diverse applicant pool. The way to help ensure grants reach all parts of the city involves increasing the number of applicants from Southwest, Southeast, and Central Fresno. The Fresno Arts Council will also be making redacted copies of the highest scoring Year 1 grant narrative responses available to future applicants to help provide examples of how to better respond to the application questions and requirements. And then the third item is the proposed expanded allocation of Year 1 art grant funding, which is an item later on the agenda today. I have distributed materials to help the commissioners with their analysis of the proposed expanded allocation of funding to serve the applicants who scored between 3.0 and 3.49 across all 4 grant categories that's considered tonight. This will not impact the funding level of any awardee already approved for a grant. It is not an endorsement of any individual applicant or project and is instead based on the scoring of applicants who participated in the original application process with the hope to put more of the available funding out into the community to create tangible benefits for the residents of the city of Fresno. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the Parks Master Plan Subcommittee have an update it would like to provide to this commission?
No, Madam Chair. I just wanted to thank staff because I've seen a lot of efforts, tools to reach out to the public with the modifications or the update of that document. And at some point, I'd like to get an update from staff as to how is it working, or are we getting good results, or are we having to be even more creative to get comments from the public?
Thank you. Does the Highest Needs Neighborhood Subcommittee have an update it would like to provide to the commission?
We do. We met as a group to discuss the efforts to get more feedback on highest needs parks design and location through the various outreach and engagement strategies that have been going forth. We've had some very good responses, but the responses to the survey questions have not really been balanced across the demographic trends and representation in the community, particularly a bit lower than we would like to see amongst the Latino community. So we brainstormed ways to reach those groups, including partnering with local nonprofits, reaching out to Families in Action and others. And we agreed as a group to help facilitate introductions and provide better connections to support the success of this ongoing outreach effort.
Thank you. Does the San Joaquin River Parkway Subcommittee have an update it would like to provide to the commission?
Yes. So the San Joaquin River Conservancy and the San Joaquin River Parkway Trust have offered to give us a tour of the properties for the subcommittee. So we're hoping to get that scheduled. And the San Joaquin River Conservancy said they'd be available September 18th or 19th. So I don't know who we're supposed to make sure is on that tour or not for the subcommittee meeting, but we'd like to get that going.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Parks Director Aguirre, were you going to respond?
Commissioner Kotarski, you can work with myself. I'll make sure we get our team on board to coordinate that. I just want to make sure the Brown Act violation, we aren't violating the Brown Act, rules with that. So yeah, send it through us and we'll coordinate that.
Thank you. We will now move on to member reports and comments. As a reminder, this is a time for commission members to report anything they feel important for the public or commission to know, but it's not a time for discussion. Commissioner Barraza, do you have any reports?
Madam Chair, something that I always have been wondering, annually we make recommendations to the Fresno City Council on budgets and different things, but we never hear back. I know that we can look at the results of the amendments, or what do they call them, motions that are made, and then you see the final list of what happens. But we make very good recommendations that I never hear what happens to them. And so at the appropriate time, I would like to get some feedback from staff because we represent the public, and I would certainly hope that our council is listening to our recommendations. So I just wanted to point that out and hope that down the road we get a report from staff on just what did they take from us that they liked, and what did they not take from us that they didn't like. That's all.
I agree. That was something that I was going to bring up tonight too, so you did it before me. I just wanted to know like what happened to the recommendations this budget season. Normally you guys will come back. I know we've been moving pretty fast and had a lot of activities and deadlines to meet, but can you give us a update?
Sure. So we're coming back in September. You know, we start our budget hearings for, believe it or not, FY26. At that point in time, that's when we will present those budget recommendations by this commission and the results and what motions were adopted by City Council. So at that point in time, as we kick off kind of that budget hearing for FY26, we'll be able to highlight the FY25 kind of highlights of the budget, and then again, as I mentioned, the recommendations and the motions approved by council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Singh?
No comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Dolan?
Nothing at this time.
Commissioner Caliga? Kaya, okay. Any reports or comments you'd like for this commission to know?
I don't know if it's the appropriate time, but there's some things that are on my mind about going forward next year. A couple of people have mentioned wanting to do 2-year grants, and I don't know where that would be in our discussion today.
2-year grants in regards to?
Funding 2-year grants.
For the arts, the cultural arts plan, or?
Cultural arts, yes.
Okay, ma'am, we are going to have a discussion later on in the agenda in regards to the arts cultural plan, and then you may ask your question there or get some guidance there.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Commissioner Kurcharski, do you have any reports or comments?
Just a comment, I guess. I was out at Vinland Park, and I noticed that the pickleball courts are especially popular, so yeah, way to go with trying to keep up with that, but it was fun to see everybody out there.
Thank you. Commissioner Ward?
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to city administration and park staff reports and comments. Does anyone from the administration have any reports or comments for the commission?
Not this evening.
Thank you. Does anyone from the PRAC staff have any reports or comments for the commission?
I do, Commissioner. Just want to highlight some community events and some great things the Parks Department's doing. In front of you, I dropped off a couple kind of flyers here of upcoming events. So next week, we will be kicking off our Tellurian 11th community meeting. That'll be held at Jackson Elementary, August 27th, 6 p.m. What we are intending to do there is receive input from the community on the park there. As I mentioned, it's Tulare between 10th and 11th on the south side of Tulare there. So want to get input on potential amenities. You know, it's a small site, but again, we can hopefully get everything the community is looking for, play areas, lighting, open space, looping walking paths, and so on. The following day, we will have the Dickey Playground Rehab Open House. That will actually be at Dickey Youth Community Center, August 28th, 6 p.m. Same thing there. We want the community to come in, discuss the reimaged vision for that park, and then all feedback is important, of course. And then want to highlight last week, Willow and Balch tot lot reopening. If you all remember, about 2 years ago, that tot lot was vandalized. We had, the vandalism was fire-related. So unfortunately, that tot lot was taken offline for about 2 years. So I want to highlight us going back in and not just putting back what was there, actually improving what was there. So we went back, instead of one tot lot, there's actually 2 tot lots there. Safety, softball surfacing throughout, and then of course we incorporated shade for the family to make sure that their youth are nice and cool as they climb through the structures. And then just wanted to highlight again 2 last items here. Our aquatic season is coming to an end here. So far this year, we've served about 24,000 folks through our recreation swimming. So that's at our various pool locations, coming in, swimming free of charge. So, and then as far as swim lessons, we've served approximately 2,400 youth and adults this year. So again, a popular program that we offer, again, free of charge to those under 18. And again, thank you to the community for coming out and taking advantage of that. And then just kind of on the same line of as Commissioner Dolan over there, our highest needs neighborhood survey we've gone through. And I just want to highlight, a community this large, getting survey results can be challenging, as many of you know. 3 years ago, when we started down this first highest needs definition, we were less than 100 responses with multiple attempts. Thank you to my team, Sarah Gayton over here, and her great leadership. We've reached over 1,200 people. We're approaching 1,300 surveys that have been completed. So thank you to the community for that. Thank you to each and every one of you for your network and allowing us to tap into those and get the message out. It's not the 10,000, 15,000 we'd like, but we're gaining on it. But again, thank you to the community. There's still time to take that survey. So we look forward to the great input from the community and how they want to see money allocated for the highest needs and what amenities they'd like to see in their parks. So that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a really good improvement from 3 years ago. Us as a commission, we have many questions on how the survey was being administered, who was taking the survey when it came to demographics. We had a lot of questions because we were not satisfied with the number of responses that we received. But to revisit that definition and be able to collect almost 1,200 responses is great. I want to set a goal. Hopefully we can get to 15 before it ends. I want to say 2,000, but I don't want to put that pressure on Sarah and her team. But I think, by setting a goal and having it out there, we'll be able to really try to make that goal, because this is such an important process. This decides how Measure P funding is going to be allocated to the new parks and the existing parks. So thank you guys for your hard work. Thank you.
And just real quickly to add to that, you talked about goals. We had a goal of, I think it was 1,000, and we created this sheet and had it printed out, and not too long ago we exceeded that, so we had to add little almost addendums to that goal sheet, to add the additional. So again, we were out canvassing neighborhoods, we were out at various city events, even other stakeholder groups, their events. So really, Sarah and her team, back to school nights, you name it, they were there covering and canvassing the entire city. So thank you to Sarah and that team. So thank you.
It's been great working with Sarah and her team sitting on this subcommittee for the highest needs. Sarah and Jessica, they listen to us, they hear us, and they go to those events, and they try to reach as many people as they can, and they even ask us, for resources. Do you know who I can reach out to for this or that? So it's been like a partnership this year, so I just want to say kudos. Commissioner Barraza.
Madam Chair, the Willow and Bulge Park, there was a place that we, nonprofit organizations from Southeast Fresno, actually planted trees. We put bark, and we also put an irrigation system. We were actually planning to have a Mexican Independence Day celebration there. I hope that we still are able to do it, because it actually became very friendly and very nice for the community. So I hope that something good happens. And I noticed you're doing something at Tulare and 11th. So I hope that, and that's a pocket park. I think this probably qualifies as a pocket park or neighborhood park. But there are a lot of apartment folks in the vicinity, and I hope we're able to sustain the improvements to that park, because there are a lot of folks that want to use it and want to take advantage of that. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to unscheduled communication. Would any member of the public like to speak on any issue within the jurisdiction of this commission? You will have up to 3 minutes. If you would like to make any comments regarding workshops, now is the time to do so. If you would like to make a comment regarding any of the scheduled hearings, comments will be taken when each item is called. We will now move on to workshops. ID number 24-1103, Workshop Fresno African American Community Council to present the historic African American Legacy Drive project and introduce Dr. Henry Apuda, her family to the commission. Would someone from the Office of Community Affairs Department please begin the presentation?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Pastor B.T. Lewis from the Office of Community Affairs. Let me first say how grateful we are for your service. The Apudas, and you said it correctly the first time, it really is Dr. Henry that I was bringing before the commission because I'm hearing her name used in this commission in a good way, that you're considering some kind of way to honor her. And I suggested to some of you that it might be a good idea if we bring Dr. Henry Apuda and maybe some of his daughters here just to introduce so you can meet Francine's family. And so they couldn't make it tonight. One of their daughters is in New York. And so we're going to shoot for September to make that happen. But thank you for putting us on the agenda. And then I'm going to sit down because I really asked for this time on behalf of the Fresno African American Community Council, who some of them are standing behind me, and they wanted to give you more information about the historic African American Legacy Drive project that we have been working on in our community. God bless you, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Good evening. So we're just coming back to you. We handed out these maps. This time I put...
Can you get a little closer to the mic, please?
Yeah.
You don't have to. There you go.
All right. Okay, sorry about that. So we're just revisiting, and we wanted to give you some updates. We added some pictures so you can see some of the people that we will be recognizing throughout this process. And we brought our new partner here from the Fresno Historic Society, Mrs. Elizabeth Laval. And we also have a calendar that will start going out in the next few months for next year, and we'll add some stuff to it. So we're making some good roads. We're collecting a lot of data, and we're ready to present a good project. So we'd like to kind of let you talk a little bit.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Elizabeth Laval. I'm honored to serve as the president of the Fresno City and County Historical Society. We're 105 years old and have been serving the community for that many years. And what we would just like to share is that we heard you, and fortunately in round one of the Measure P grants, we were able to serve as a fiscal receiver or sponsor for a group of Chinese American museum project. And this year we are already making ourselves available and have proudly partnered with this project, the African American Legacy Drive. It's time that Southwest Fresno is recognized for its long and colorful history. We're going to make sure that nothing else gets torn down. We're also going to work on, in another hat, trying to preserve the Hinton Center as a local landmark through the Historic Preservation Commission, on which I serve. And so we just wanted to share that your words along this process have not gone unheard, and we will be serving as a fiscal sponsor for as many historically cultural organizations as you need. And so we're here, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Essentially, it's all been said. You remember us from last meeting, and my name is Jim Aldridge. Don't worry about it. But I believe you have passed out to you some materials that we're already developing, because we see this as very important. And when you talk about communities of need and that kind of thing, it's an interesting dynamic that went on in West Fresno. When you talk about that area down by where the post office is, all of that used to be residential, commercial, and the rest of it. And with redevelopment, and I'll have to blame myself for it because I worked for the city of Fresno for 25 years and worked with the redevelopment agency and all the rest of that. You can read it in some of the history here. But a lot of that was wiped out. And what you have in front of you, if you look at that, it's really a renaissance, because things are being forgotten over there. especially as it relates to the young folks. You can ask a number of young folks, do you know about X, Y, or Z? And they, no, I never heard of it. Did you know they used to live down here? And so forth. So what we are proposing, and it was kind of triggered really by this, and I don't understand this one, the monopoly, yeah, not domino, the monopoly thing. And when they got through doing all the city of Fresno, as I understand it, I stand to be corrected, that they identified Kearney Boulevard that runs out to Kerman as the place in that monopoly. The rest of some important stuff that has happened in West Fresno in that monopoly game, whatever it is, was left out. And that's the kind of exclusion that's going on. And this is a recapture, and there's an emphasis to be made when we talk about a renaissance and to talk about the legacy of some folks that have come there. And what we will be putting together and presenting to you when we go through the process that you have figured out for agencies and working with the Historical Society is to identify not only those folks who are truly legacies, and you see a lot of the pictures there, that's just the beginning of it. There's also an approach for calling it the roots that are in West Fresno, and you would be surprised at the branches that have come out of West Fresno into the metropolitan area, as well as on a nationwide basis. I'll just give you this one, and then I'll take whatever questions you might have. For example, the father, Stan McDonald, was an athlete at Edison High School. He was an administrator at Edison High School, and he was also an outstanding person in track. He and another person won the state track meet. That's nowhere to be found. But probably the most impactful definition you have of Stan McDonald as a route to West Fresno is the fact that that's Audra McDonald's father. All lost as far as I'm concerned. I know there's a sign down here where there's a walkway and all that, but that's not quite enough. There's a tremendous amount of root as well as branches that have to be recognized. One of the things, other than the lane that we'll be producing and presenting to you, will be 3 volumes of what we're referring to as albums. One will relate to the legacy classification. There is also going to be another volume, and Mr. Martin will be the person who says how big it is and how it gets decorated and all of the rest of that, because he does the technology stuff for us, and he's a member of the coordinating committee. And the other one is the history makers. There are a lot of young folks, younger folks than certainly me, that are doing good work that needs to be recognized by our children, African-American children, and our children's children. It's got to seep down. And this particular effort will do that by capturing in that volume. And then to go back without taking, let's say, African-American history or black history or majoring in it or something like that, is another volume that has those African-Americans that have made history that are impacting us now. Hale Medical Center was once over there, and it's an office building and the rest of that. That needs to be surfaced and told to our young folks. So in our museum activity will be storytelling. And that's not new. That's not new. As I understand, Native Americans do storytelling all the time to pass on their history. We will have that as a part of the festival that's marked on your, this is a special thing for you, marked on that. So anyway, let me take some questions. I could go on and on and on and on. Any questions you might have? And want to just point out from our last meeting here when we presented you with some material, I don't know how he did it, and I don't worry about that, but we have 2,800 hits on the social media. Is that what they call it? On the Google map.
Okay.
He needs to explain all that technical stuff.
It's okay.
But 2,800 hits without advertising, but you can tell them about it since it is a workshop.
Well, you had a question right here, that's right.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you guys for your presentation. It was very insightful, and it gives me hope. I want to bring it back to the commission to see if any members of the commission have any questions or comments regarding this item. I know I do, and normally I don't go first, but I'm very excited about this project, so I do want to go first before I allow my other commissioners speak. First of all, I want to say it's about time.
Amen.
It's about time. A lot of our history is not told to us as kids, and it's because of the traumatic and the oppression that was set on us and our ancestors during slavery. So once our grandparents migrated from the South to the West, those stories were left in the South. So we don't know about a lot of things. But for me as a kid, I was always curious of where we come from. How did we get here? Who was your mom and your dad? What did they do? Who was their mom and their dad? We're lucky as African American people, and I like saying black because I'm a black American. I was born here, so that's how I identify. But who were we? You know, where did we come from? A lot of our history is erased. That storytelling is not being told. So as a mother, I try to make sure that my son knows all his family. I talk about the present and the past, and I put a picture to the face and to the things that were left inside me. I'm glad that this is something that you guys are doing. A lot of our youth, I think this will benefit them a lot. It'll give them something to look forward to and to take pride in their community and where they come from. And just on another note, Mr. McDonald is more than just Audra's dad. During a time where a lot of African-American people were not to be business owners, his parents were business owners in this little town called Jericho. And I would like to see something like that done in the future as well. Yes. And if I wasn't watching the PBS Finding Your Roots that I watch on a regular basis on Tuesday, and they just so happened to feature Audra McDonald, I would not have known that I grew up in West Fresno, and there was actually a town of business owners in that little part of African American people. So that's how important our history is. That's how important that this project that you guys are doing is. And I just want to say thank you very much. It is. And what you're doing is that you're doing cultural diversity training to get them to understand, to get people to understand about the Black community and why we take pride in it and why we are proud to be from West Fresno. Just like we can understand how people are proud to be from east side of Fresno, we're proud to be west side Fresno people. West Fresno is the reason why I am who I am today. West Fresno is the reason why that I sit on this commission today. So thank you. And I would like to turn it over to my commissioners if they have any questions. Yes, ma'am.
Very quickly, Commissioner McCoy, Chair McCoy, and the commissioners, I'd like to direct you to valleyhistory.org, our Historical Society website. Something I doubt that you know was in 1978, a huge series of Black and Latino oral histories, just audio, were taken of the pioneers who came. They were in their 80s and 90s in 1978, and their stories begin in the late 1800s. And there's dozens and dozens of them for you to hear that we share with the children during our curriculum.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes, you have the floor.
My family grew up in West Fresno, and I'm glad you're shining a light on all the wonderful cultural values that are there. I have a quick question. Are people like Jack Kelly and the people that started the African Museum, are they going to be recognized? Okay.
Yeah, he's on that list but we see a lot of connectivity with the African American Museum started by Jess McDonald, served on the Planning Commission, and Jack Kelly. And in that route, the first route going up from Fresno Street is his house, and we'll be identifying that.
Okay.
Where he used to live.
Okay.
So we'll be doing that, yes.
All right. They used, the African American Museum, like Arte America, used to be housed at the Warners. That's where they put their first building up. I mean, where they first rented.
Okay. I mean, that's a consideration. I can't speak to them, but there is a connection in terms of the history, African American Museum. And it seems to me, I am not committed to that because I haven't talked to them about that, but there's a relationship between what they do in terms of their trailblazers every year, what their pictures and so forth they have on the wall of history makers and so forth. We'll be working with them to put it in those 3 volumes and to archive it with them.
Oh, wonderful.
Remember, I didn't say, we didn't come and say, that's what we're going to do, because you got to work that out with them. But the way we've been discussing this, it becomes a real reality.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you.
You grew up in West Fresno?
Madam Chair, yes.
You have the floor.
I wanted to thank you all for giving us information about the current status of Southwest Fresno and your vision to improve Southwest Fresno. You may see that from time to time this commission discusses the deficiencies we have in Southeast, South Central, and Southwest. I actually lived a few years in Southwest, and I remember it was hard to find a gas station. It was hard to find a bank. It was hard to find the basic things that you have in other communities. So unless we acknowledge the lack of resources we have sometimes in certain parts of our city, we're not going to be able to reflect a more equity citywide. And I sense frustration, even when I've attended meetings on the west side, of residents who sometimes they've almost given up. And I say to anyone, do not give up. This is our city, this is our community, and we all should be treated equally. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commissioners? Well, thank you.
Back to give you a little bit more update. We're working really very well with the Historical Society. They're doing some stuff to connect all of that and connect it with a couple other agencies to recoup and to do a renaissance job in terms of what gave you vitality. There was some other stuff that happened.
Well, thank you. Good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to discussion items. ID number 24-1105, discussion regarding the expanded access to Arts and Cultural Fund grant guidelines. The Commission has the opportunity to review and amend the grant guidelines for council approval. As such, I would like to take this time to open up for discussion to any commissioner who would like to discuss the current grant guidelines. Does any member of the commission have any questions or comments regarding this item? Commissioner Ward, you have the floor.
Thank you. Before this meeting, I had the opportunity to discuss this item with Hugo Morales from Radio Bilingüe, and I thought he was going to be able to come tonight, but I don't see him here, so I wanted to share kind of his input on the grant guideline recommendation for modification. He and also his wife, Amy Kitchener, who's the executive director of ACTA, they both really wanted to encourage consideration of adding in a component in the grant guidelines that is the question around what communities do you serve, and for organizations that don't have specific data, for them to use their good faith estimate of who they serve or put down who they inspire, and that kind of just acknowledging that right now, based on the year one grant applications, we're going to be gathering information around those funded applicants, but as we look forward, to future applicants, that is something that will maybe help develop a more full picture of the applicants and kind of what they're hoping to accomplish throughout the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I think that this, the need to revise or take a closer look at the guidelines that had been prepared for the distribution of the expanded access to the Arts and Culture Fund requires some modifications to the guidelines. First, I think that we have to, without a doubt, the process that we just concluded lacked equity. Speaking of equity, it did not have equity. Therefore, I actually have written something here that I'd like to share with the Commission as a start to have a conversation on this topic. And first is the importance of providing the Fresno Arts Council resources, more resources, to conduct a more assertive outreach and recruitment campaign in the areas of our city that did not get adequate funding. And I'm talking about Southwest, Southeast, and South Central. And there may be a need for, instead of looking at the council districts, maybe we look at zip codes, because even on the west side, we have downtown that's part of the west side, but it's kind of deceiving because there are zip codes in that part of the town that are not receiving anything. So everything is coming to downtown Fresno, and downtown Fresno is not the west side. There are different dynamics that takes place in those areas. I actually wrote something. I want to read one paragraph, if I may, Madam Chair. It said, something that we might want to include as wording on the guidelines, but you know, it's subject to polishing. I wrote, in the next funding cycles of the expanded access to the Arts and Cultural Fund, starting around the month of October 2024, in both categories, the Emerging Project category and the Emerging Organizations Project category, the Fresno Arts Council shall ensure equity in the distribution of these funds to make sure the neighborhoods in Southeast, South Central, and Southwest previously left out from receiving their fair share of funding from these grants are included. In order to achieve these results, the Fresno Arts Council shall receive the necessary financial resources to provide the needed outreach and recruitment, accompanied with technical assistance of organizations and residents in these neighborhoods for their successful application and receipt of funding from these grants. The next paragraph, I just took a shot at identifying a certain methodology. How do we measure success? How do we measure equity? How do we measure that the fair share of the resources are being provided to all parts of our community, especially those that are being left out? I just have this, but other members of the commission may have other more refined ways. The success in achieving the desired equity results shall be measured by comparing the average distribution of funds in these zip codes and or council districts to all zip codes and or council districts citywide. To the extent possible, equity shall be defined as making sure each zip code and or council district previously underfunded receives equal but not less than the average previous citywide funding allocation for all citywide zip codes and or council districts within the city of Fresno. And when I talk about an average, it could be a percentage, not necessarily a dollar amount. I think the other very important point is that we also need to establish a policy that if we're trying to generate equity of this process, that maybe the application process should only be open to those organizations that have not applied for these funds. Otherwise, there's no way of getting closer to some form of equity. And I don't know what that threshold would be to determine which organizations may apply, and I would think that it should be those that have not applied before. And also, I did establish as a threshold a citywide average, which I think if you divide 8.4 by 7, that would give you an average in terms of a dollar amount. But also, I don't know exactly, I haven't done it, but we probably also have a percentage, as a percentage, what that would be if we divided, if we obtain the percentage of 7, there are 7 council districts, right? I get confused with the 9. So I wanted to start a conversation for promoting fairness and equity in this process that we did not have in the last round. And you know, we didn't want, I felt that it's not necessarily constructive or healthy when you start saying, oh, you know, it's the Philharmonic, or no, they're all community groups. They're all part of our city. We all should care for our entities. It's not about us versus them. But when somebody's left out, we all also need to examine in good faith a way of bringing fairness into the process. Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity to address the commission, and I'd like to hear from the rest of the commission.
Thank you, Commissioner Barraza. I agree with some of the things that you have stated here and before us. What I'm kind of iffy on is if an organization has applied for a grant, they shouldn't be able to, and receive funding, that they shouldn't be able to reapply again. From looking at the list of the last, we have a lot of smaller nonprofits who apply, who may depend on the next round of funding to keep providing those cultural arts services that they are to the community. I've been with a nonprofit who was starting from the ground up, so applying for the same grant year after year to keep the lights on, to keep us working, was something that they had to do until they built a name. So that's one thing that I'm very hesitant on, because a lot of these smaller nonprofits, they will depend on the funding of next year in order for them to keep providing those services to our community. So that's just something that I'm a little iffy on, but I do hear you with your comments. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Vice Chair Dolan, you have the floor.
Yeah, I just want to second what you just said. I think that is not effective to say that you can't apply again if you've received funding once. These efforts that our arts culturals are going through are not single-year cycles. It's a long-term sustainable. And quite honestly, there's very, very few nonprofits in the city of any type that don't need the assistance that could come from this and don't need help with sustainable long-term funding. And I also want to second what you're saying. For the smaller nonprofits, that funding can make or break, and that doesn't happen just on a yearly basis. So I think that is incredibly important that we don't limit that. I guess I definitely think we need to address any questions of equity, although that's presented as a fact, not as a sort of a issue of continued discussion. But I'm not sure that going by zip, we have to be very careful about how we decide to do that. Going by zip code just presupposes that there's an equal number of cultural arts, organizations per zip code, which I think there's very little evidence that that's true. And we just have to think very carefully about how we answer the questions of whether or not this has been equitable, and then come to some solution that will be appropriate across the entire city. So I just want to give that caution.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dolan. Anyone else? Commissioner Ward, you have the floor.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I understand and hear what Commissioner Barraza has put forth. I do think that, again, The Cultural Arts Subcommittee will be working on this before the September 16th meeting, and if we can get another commissioner appointed to fill the vacancy on the subcommittee, that would be amazing. I think it would really benefit if Commissioner Barraza spoke with Lilia Chavez outside of this commission meeting to kind of work through different considerations. I personally think that it will take a more nuanced approach than just looking at total dollars available and zip codes. I think we'll need to really be thoughtful. I think including that question around who is served or who do you want to inspire, I think that's something that will be helpful when we look at future applications, kind of around making sure we're looking at a diverse range of potential awardees, reaching these areas that are traditionally underserved throughout the city. And so I'm just, hopeful that we can get some more of that feedback to the Arts Council before the subcommittee brings back red lines to the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, Commissioner Ward, I heard you loud and clear. I get somebody for you. All right, we will now move on to hearings. Hearing motion to drop the threshold. Did we do this one already? No, huh? Okay. That's modified, correct?
Madam
Okay.
Chair, just to obtain clarification, does that mean that this matter will go to the subcommittee and they will come back with recommendations on modifications to the guidelines, or what's the next step?
So the subcommittee, correct me if I'm wrong, will have a discussion about the guidelines and come up with a recommendation, and then they will present it back to this commission.
Okay.
Correct? Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Thank you. I just want to
And
make
the
sure.
subcommittee is
I'll
also
make sure to-
looking for members. I think.
Yes,
Yes.
that's also why we were hoping any community members who had input on this issue would contact Dr. Chavez, within the next few weeks so we can incorporate that feedback in the consideration.
Okay. And thank you, Madam Chair, for putting it on the agenda because this is very important.
Exactly, and, once that discussion takes place and is presented back to us, then we'll see how we can move forward and make sure that what everyone wants to see will get in there, or we come to some type of compromise to where everyone is satisfied.
And I just needed to make an observation that in regard to our vice chair, I didn't want to get into the discussion again of whether it's fair to get 3% versus 44%. If those are not facts, I don't know what it is. So I just needed to at least offer my observation that we had a lot of discussion on this matter, and I hope that we can make it a better process. Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I say something?
Absolutely.
What John mentioned was that there's not as many arts groups in Southeast Fresno, and they don't have the budgets like the Philharmonic or the Fresno Art Museum. So how do you make it equitable? And I don't know that most of the arts groups in Southeast Fresno are emerging or they're established. Like you say, how do you measure it? How are we going to be able to resolve this so where all the districts get fair amount when some groups need more than others in terms of their budgets?
I think that two wrong don't make one right. I believe that Southeast Fresno and actually Southwest and South Central do have a lot of residents, maybe not organizations, but a lot of residents. Southeast, look at Roseville High. It's an art magnet for Southeast Fresno. Sunnyside High School. We have a lot of talented people. And I think it's okay if we might have overlooked, Lilia Chavez, the director of the Fresno Arts Council, is very familiar with the resources and the wonderful people we have. But let's give it a different spin. It has to have positive results. If we start saying that certain areas don't have the talent or doesn't have the organizations, then I think we will be failing in our efforts to be fair to people. And Madam Chair, I know that you don't want to get into this conversation, but I just feel that many good people here actually acknowledge that we can do a better job. Let's try it. Let's try to do a better job. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You know, I think that this will only get better with time. This is the first go-round. So we have to work through the kinks, just like when this commission was formed and we was thrown into budget season. We wanted to do so many things, but we had to understand our role and we had to learn the budget process. So just like we had to learn the budget process, we're gonna learn this process as we go along. So we're gonna work out the kinks in it to make it a better process to where it benefit all community, especially the communities that are disinvested in. I hear you. I'm from one of those communities that have been disinvested in. And no, downtown is not part of West Fresno. I agree with you. But we have to make it a way. We can't just look at zip codes because that's gonna exclude a lot of people. But if we do it by district and do it in a way by city council districts, because we know some of the districts overlap, we may come to a goal or a compromise or agreement where everyone would be satisfied if we do it that way. But again, that's why we have our subcommittee. And thank you for providing those comments for our subcommittee to take back and consider it and see how they can incorporate it in. This is a good discussion item on this. I do appreciate the back and forth, but it's only going to get better with time. So it's not that I didn't want to hear it. I want to hear everything. We want to hear everything so we'll know what we need to do, because us up here, we represent them out there. So we need to make sure that we're doing a good job. So thank you.
I just want to echo Chair McCoy's kind of comments right now. This is year one, and like we will get hopefully a lot of data from you know, the subcommittee, the Fresno Arts Council, as to like different parts of like the projects as well. Like we'll get to see where were the events that were hosted, the arts, the functions that, you know, these organizations and emerging artists are putting on. Maybe through that we can also see where kind of the funding needs to be focused on. And honestly, as Chair McCoy said, it's just going to build up from here. And like even in terms of like outreach, if we're worried about like the fact that there's, you know, like different percentage of you know, applicants from certain zip codes, maybe those are the zip codes we can like heavily like focus on like outreach, you know, like whether it's canvassing or tabling at events, like making sure that we're there. Not that we weren't, but, you know, even like building more on that. So just super excited to see where this goes and honestly like see how it plays out. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Madam Chair?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Good point, Mr. Singh. And to get back to your point, like Roosevelt High and individual artists that might be out there that could work with a nonprofit, being able to reach out to them and go to them and let them know what's available to them, to the school. There's something in the rules that said we can't give money to schools, so they would have to team up with a nonprofit to make that work. But that reaching out to more and more people over there, Mr. Singh is absolutely right.
Madam Chair, just one final comment, if I may. I believe I have full trust in Commissioner Ward in terms of we actually have had conversations of ideas, but I think that we have to define the strategy in writing so we agree on what's the strategy. We cannot have more of the same. We have to improve. And I'm very comfortable that she's performing a leadership in this process, and I'll be happy to exchange ideas with her too.
Well, thank you for that. And she is doing an awesome job. We all are. How passionate we are about this part of Measure P is yeah, we're very passionate about all of it, but you know, this is something exciting for the arts community right now. They don't normally get a lot of funding we kind of overlook over them. We kind of advocate more for parks than we do our cultural arts community. So I'm glad to have this discussion and hear the passion from everyone, even when you guys pack the chambers and blame me for stuff that I have no control over, but just playing. It just reminds me of why, or reminds all of us why we do this work, because we care about our community, all of it. We want to make sure that we're bringing all the resources that we can. And thank you guys. But now I'm going to move on to hearings. ID number 24-1126, hearing motion to drop the threshold for the expanded access to arts and culture, EAAC grants to 3.0 for all 4 categories, as discussed at the July 15, 24 meeting. Would someone from the Cultural Arts Subcommittee or the Fresno Arts Council begin?
Okay, thank you. So before the meeting started, I passed out a document like this for all the commissioners. It is an excerpt from the presentation in item 12B, which had the chart around who would be funded under this expansion. And then I annotated it to add what districts, each of these potentially 14 additional grants that might be funded, what districts they're from. And then I identified, the expanded allocation of funding for each of the 4 categories. I thought that would help with the analysis as the commission considers this proposal to expand the grant allocation down to the 3.0 up to the 3.49 level, which is a greater allocation than what was approved at the July 15th meeting. And so I did want to mention the Cultural Arts Subcommittee, in partnership with the Fresno Arts Council, had originally chosen the 3.5 funding and above level as an allocation where it could be funded across all 4 categories, but still have some, slightly conservative. There would still be some money left available to fund successful appeals. And so following the last meeting where we saw what appeals came in, we did see that they came from the 3.0 to 3.49 level. I marked on the annotated chart those with a hashtag sign or a pound sign. So you'll see which one are those 3 different appeals, which will come up in the next item at the meeting tonight. But all 3 of them would be included in this expanded allocation. It was kind of our recommendation after reviewing what had come in the appeals and who we might be able to additionally fund, that since the money is available, that we wanted to recommend that it be put to use, that it be allocated to fund these additional 14 grants, and that way they could, really start to benefit the arts and culture organizations and applicants throughout the community by kind of expanding and broadening that reach of who we're able to serve through the grant process.
Sorry, while the chair is out, I'm stepping in here. Is there any member of the public who would like to make a comment regarding this item?
There is no one online or in chambers.
We do have some members of the public who are raising their hands. Is that? Yes.
Welcome, Pastor Lewis. You'll have 3 minutes.
Oh, okay, thank you. I think I can do it. So I'll just say that I have been approached to approach our Office of Community Affairs team to help reach deeper into our communities, especially in the south part of our city. And so I'm still, I'm hoping to have that approval within this week so that we can work with, I don't want to say your name wrong, Ms. Chavez, and some people on the commission. I'm a preacher, I'm not a politician. I'm trying to walk some really funny lines right now. and so we want to, but I have spoken to our team, And we're excited about being able to reach deeper and help some of our smaller nonprofits, hardworking groups in our community all over the city to be prepared to apply for the next round of funding. And that's all I think I want to say right now.
Thank you.
Good, excellent.
Chairman McCoy, we have one guest online.
Okay, go ahead.
Tricia B.
For the commission to consider widening the eligibility and guideline requirements.
Tricia, can you start over? We didn't get that first part.
Oh, okay. Is this okay? Can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm a local Polynesian dance and music practitioner, and I wanted to ask the commission also to consider widening the eligibility and guideline requirements. There are many of us cultural practitioners that would love to apply, but are, quote unquote, not organized. One idea I've heard over and over is that individuals would need to apply with like a partner nonprofit, but many of us aren't connected and we don't even know many who would be willing to be a partner with us. It'd be helpful if there was a list or some kind of connection that someone could help us do that so that we can be linked with an agency that would be willing to do that on our behalf. So that would be very, very helpful. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for your time.
That is all the speakers we have.
Thank you. Does any member of the commission have any questions or comments regarding this item?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for being conservative and then offering this really reasoned, measured suggestion on how to move forward. That makes it really easy on me and as a voting member here. And I just wanted to thank you for taking that approach. Great job.
Anyone else? No? All right, then is there a motion to drop the threshold for the EAAC grant program to 3.0 for all 4 categories as presented?
I'll move.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Singh. Thank you, Commissioner Barraza. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. This item is approved.
Okay.
So now we don't have to do the appeals one, do we? We still have to do it? Oh, I'm like, do we have to do it? Can we just fly by it? No.
Can I just say something?
Yes.
Real quick.
Yes, ma'am.
In these appeals, there were reasons why they were not funded, and they got a lower score. How do you reconcile that with going down to 3.0?
So once I introduce Ms. Chavez, and then she'll be able to explain what actually just took place and what we voted on and how that's going to change the process. Thank you. Next hearing is ID number 23-1086, hearing Fresno Arts Council to present expanding access to arts culture grant appeals for PRAC recommendations. Will someone from the Cultural Arts Subcommittee or the Fresno Arts Council like to begin?
I'm ready.
Welcome,
Good
Dr.
evening.
Chavez.
Good evening, commissioners and staff of the Parks Department. It certainly is exciting to be at this place in this process. I appreciate the action you just took. It does help us moving forward to see how this process may continue in the future and perhaps not have the stumbling blocks that we experienced this time. Our presentation today includes the adjusted funding recommendations, the appeals process, the appeals review, and the identification of the committee's recommendation on these appeals. Let's see if I can do this. What do I push? Just side? Okay, cool. cool. So first of all, we're in the appeals and budget revision process now. So for the month of August, we will send out award letters tomorrow. So you've now approved all of these grants. We will send out award letters. All of those awardees, because only very few received the actual amount that they applied for, will have to submit budget revisions. Now, many of the applicants don't understand how to do that. So we are going to have 2 workshops to assist people in doing these budget revisions. We also will be following that with the agreements, and the final agreements will include their actual budget revision and a revised scope of work. So because, again, many of them, because of the delay, have to readjust their scheduling. Even though the funds are retroactive to July 1, they're going to have to readjust in some instances. So those things will go into the agreement. Once agreements are signed, and we expect this to take a couple weeks, we will be prepared the beginning of September to send out payments. Those will either be electronic payments or they will be checks in the mail for 90% of the awarded funds. And that, as I said, will come after they've submitted the revised budget and renewed scope of work. Now, guidelines revision. You've already begun that process with today's meeting. We hope to have revised guidelines to you by September 16th so that we can then send them to City Council in the end of September or the first part of October, depending on how long this process takes. We then anticipate opening the new grant cycle in October. So we're moving quickly. We're starting earlier this year so that people will have plenty of time to apply. And also, we will have enough time to address any issues that come up. What we learned this year, and it will continue to impact this process, even this year's funding, is that organizations are not up to date with their either state reporting or the reporting that has to be done to the Attorney General's office. And the city requires that those things all be in place, or we can't award any funds. So it will impact a few applications that you've just approved. There are a few of those that may not get their funding if they don't get us that documentation before the time for us to send out payments. So I just want you to be aware of that, because that could occur and you will hear complaints from those people. And I understand, but there's nothing we can do at this point. What we did this year that was different than we will do next year is we went ahead and accepted applications. We reviewed applications from people that didn't have all of their documentation. There were 26 of them. Had we stopped, they would have been out, not a chance. Instead, we went ahead and went through the process. We gave these people an opportunity to get their ducks in a row, get those documents straightened out. And so 20 of them did it in time, and we are able to award them grants. Next year, we won't be so generous. If they don't have their documentation, we won't move them forward for review. And I know that sounds difficult and perhaps unfriendly, but it is the process that is required for most granting. So we are going to kind of step up and expect our community to step up with us. And many of them, because of this year, they got those things taken care of. So we expect to have less with that problem next year. Okay, I want to remind you that we started with 137 applications, and there were requests of 15,584,431. That was huge. We whittled it down so that we now, with the action you took today, will be awarding $9,461,420.90. That isn't all the funds that were available. So as we start looking at next year, we know that we had a remainder. So we started out with 10.5. We spent 9,461,000 plus. We're going to still have 1,038,580. There's a projection of a little more than 5 million. We round at 5 million just for ease of presentation and also not to over-project. So what we see is potential for next year of 6,038,580. That's a significant drop from what you're awarding this year. That's a significant drop from what you're awarding this year. So that means that even though we will have more applicants, the competition will be tougher. And I will remind you, as you consider guideline issues, the ordinance is very specific. The ordinance says that this will be a competitive grants process. That means we can't allocate designated amounts for any part of the community. The funds have to be available to everyone through a competitive grant process. So as we look at those issues of equality, because I tell you, this process exuded equity, but equality is another issue. When we look at the issues of equality across the entire city, we are looking at a competitive grant process that everyone needs to be able to apply to equally. So we really can't make those funding designations across the city. What we have to do is get better at the outreach to ensure that more applicants are coming in, because if they don't apply, we can't consider them. So it's working on getting more applicants from those areas that did not apply this time. All right. So I'm going to go over the appeals review criteria very quickly, because your action basically eliminated the need for appeals. But since procedurally we have to move forward, we will. Any applicant who chose to could submit an appeal. Those appeals were received by the Fresno Arts Council and were considered by the subcommittee. and then were forwarded to you for consideration. Upon request from an appellant, they received the remarks that came from the committee that reviewed their application. Some applications were found to be ineligible, and not being eligible is not cause for appeal. So we didn't consider anyone who suggested a lack of eligibility as a reason for appeal. All applications need to be properly submitted at the time of the published deadline. So if applicants were not properly submitted, they technically were ineligible. And I talked about this earlier. We did allow some people the grace this year to get their paperwork in, even though they missed the deadline. The adjudication process. This is the scoring that was used to determine eligibility. You can see the ranking of 6 through 1. You chose to fund everyone 3.0 and above. And in the documentation that you received, you can see how many were in that category. There were no 6s in this grant cycle. That says something. And it doesn't mean that we don't have good organizations. It means that the panel determined that there were no perfect applicants. So when we funded down to 3s, those are projects that moderately achieve the purpose of the program, meets most of the review criteria and project requirements. So these are still solid Cs, if we all know the grading system. So they're not the best projects, but they're average in a rating process. The appellants that you received information on are Chumali Kiadora, Mighty Me, and Another Level Training Academy. Each of these appellants appealed because they were not funded. They indicated various different reasons for the appeals. You received copies of all of their appeals, so you should have had an opportunity to review those. But the appeals criteria was specifically related to either a clerical error or not, or the panel not having received all of the information that was submitted, and so therefore there was an error. Those are the only grounds for appeal. So given those grounds for appeal, the Cultural Arts Subcommittee and the Fresno Arts Council did not find that the criteria for a valid appeal were met. So the criteria was not met for a valid appeal on none of these appellants. So it would be now the purview of the commission to determine whether or not they felt there was additional findings or they had another recommendation. In this case, because all of these appellants are now funded, the point becomes moot. So I'm going to defer to legal counsel to determine the process moving forward.
Because we have to listen to, or because it is a action item that is part of the process, the committee will need to make an action on it. So since it's already essentially been pre-approved, the recommendation would be to make a motion to approve them for the funding, just so that we follow. Yes. Right, as presented. Mm-hmm.
Well,
you can make the motion, but then you still need to go out to public, and we still need to follow the full process.
Do you want to make a motion?
yeah, I just have a couple of comments. If
Sure.
I could. So I think the process that you outlined for the next grant cycle is great, but I worry very much about the timeline. It's very compressed to get this all done by October, especially when we've heard already that there are the desire for input to try to make the process better, which I think we all want to do and can do and should acknowledge that we should always be striving to do, right, to make this process better. So that's going to take some time, I imagine, to do that thoughtfully and to accomplish what we're after without throwing the baby out along with the bathwater. So what would be the impact if you didn't hit that 1st of October for, as you've outlined, that current cycle?
It's not the end of the
okay,
world.
Okay.
Someone just described me as one of the most patient people they've ever met. And my response was,
congratulations.
When you have full transparency and community input, the process takes longer.
Yeah, I agree.
And so I believe that we always want to get this done as quickly as possible. And to your point, you actually have had an initial workshop today on the guidelines. You had the opportunity to bring forward recommendations and suggestions, as one member did. You will receive these again on the 16th. We'll have an opportunity at that point to make suggestions, recommendations, adjust. If you still aren't ready, we could go to the 30th. That would still give us enough time to get to the council in October. So while it may seem like a short window, it's actually not. So I will trust the process, and perhaps if you do as well, we will achieve our goal.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, we want to do this in a timely fashion, obviously. We don't want to lose any momentum, but I don't want to have a false sense of urgency where we're setting deadlines and at the sacrifice of the thoughtfulness and the quality that we want to put into this as we continue to improve. And then the other just sort of comment that I have, and I want to say this in full acknowledgement of all the work that has gone into this and the work that you've personally put in Fresno Arts Council. You mentioned that this was designed to be a competitive grant process. But I think a lot of what we're hearing is that, if you will, the spirit of this is that we want it to be competitive in terms of impact and quality, not necessarily hang our hats on competitive in terms of those who have the capacity and the capabilities to handle pretty rigorous grant applications, right? There's a difference in the rigor of those two things. Mm-hmm. And I think that what we're hearing from public comment tonight, for example, is can we be mentored, coached, so that a lot of these smaller organizations can be competitive in the grant writing process or grant application process as they are competitive in the sort of quality of what they hope to do or what they intend to do or the impact of what they want to do. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I would say that there's 2 points here. One is the ordinance. The competitive process is written into the ordinance.
Agreed.
In order to change that, we would have to change the ordinance. That's a very different process than the role of this commission. However, the issue of equity that I hear the word bantered about, equity means adjusting a process, adjusting a service to allow those that have been disenfranchised to access. So how do we do that? In this process, we created a dual system so that emerging applications, those are small organizations that were unexperienced, would not have to compete with larger, more experienced organizations. Right. That's a point of equity. We also allowed for organizations that didn't have all their ducks in a row and didn't have their forms additional time to get those things in. That's a point of equity. We adjusted the rules for people that didn't have previous access.
I'm sorry, Dr. Chavez. This discussion, which is very rich and I appreciate it, but it needs to stick to the appeals process.
Okay, I'm sorry, but
So it was my fault
respond.
for the misleading comments. I apologize.
I just would like to make this final point. It's that it is our intent, as it has been from the beginning, to be equitable. I can't necessarily address equality.
Agreed. I just want to make sure we give ourselves time to do that, is my final statement.
Sure.
Thank you. Before I make a motion to approve, I would like to take it out to the public for a comment. Anyone online or in person inside the chambers have a comment on this item? You'll have up to 3 minutes.
There are no speakers online.
Chair McCoy, can I just make a quick comment? As you all know, the guidelines here do have to go back to council after you all approve them as a commission. So we'll work with Dr. Chavez on timing of that. I know October is aggressive, but we'll work with Dr. Chavez on kind of backing into what that schedule looks like. But again, any changes, and we'll work with legal too to make sure they are binding in spirit of the ordinance. So just to throw that in there, we do have to go to council for their approval as well.
Thank you. All right, I'd like to close public comment. Is there a motion to approve all the appeals as presented tonight?
So moved.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Who seconded?
Rose.
Thank you, Rose. Commissioner Rose.
You repeat the motion, please.
So, is there a motion to approve all the appeals that were presented tonight, the 3 that were on the screen? So we have to make a motion.
Just a technical question. Based on the description provided by the director of the Arts Council, it appears that they don't satisfy that requirement. At least that would be my opinion. However, because there was an adjustment to the criteria or the score that allows those organizations to qualify. And technically, they already have been, the part that I'm not clear, is that criteria required to go to council to change, or is that something that is part of the guidelines that you folks developed?
It's part of the guidelines that have already been pre-approved, that were approved by council. So we're not making any changes to the current guidelines. What they're doing is making changes to what the subcommittee and the Fresno Arts Council had originally recommended to and presented to the commission.
So can we legally approve something that doesn't meet the guidelines for the appeal process?
It does meet the guideline. It meets the guidelines. They went through the process. The applicants followed the process under the guidelines for the appeals. And so what we're doing is just, the commission is reconfirming the approval of those applicants, of the appeals. So since the process had already started, we need to follow through with it. Okay. And that is what we're doing right now. So there's no violation of the guidelines. Nothing has changed in regards to the guidelines.
That helps. Thank you. So there was a motion and a second.
Okay, so now where I leave off at? All in favor? Okay. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. All right, we will now move on to our next hearing item, ID number 24-977, hearing to receive public input on allocations related to Measure P, updates to the Parks Master Plan and Cultural Arts Plan, and annual Parks Department budget and capital improvement plans. Would any member of the public like to make a comment regarding this item? Do we have anyone online?
Yes, we have Trisha B.
And she will have 3 minutes.
Hi, it's Trisha again. Spoke earlier. I just wanted to see if we can get Dr. Chavez's contact information. Yes. Hello?
Yes, we can't do it in this format, but just contact the Arts Council. You'll be able to reach her there at the FresnoArtsCouncil.org.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
There are no more speakers online.
All right, I will close public comment. Does any member of the commission have questions or comments regarding this item? All right.
When are we going to start doing, or when are the budget recommendations being reported to council again? Is it November or October?
October?
Sorry, you're asking when do we take the recommendations to council?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we'll get through, I think, September, October, and then we typically take those, is it November? I believe a tray memo will be provided to council with your recommendations, and then those are again repeated during the FY26 budget build. It's one of the slides in the presentation, your November, your fall budget recommendation, in addition to your May recommendations.
Okay, so November and May.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So does anybody else have any comments on item 12C on the commission? All right, we will now move on to our last hearing of the night, ID number 24-976, election of chair and vice chair to the Parks, Recreation, and Arts Commission for fiscal year 2025. Before we have nominations, would any member of the public like to provide a comment regarding this item? You will have up to 3 minutes.
There are no speakers online.
None in chambers. I will go ahead and close public comment. Okay, we will now call for the nominations for chairs. Are there any nominations for the position of chair?
I would like to nominate Kimberly McCoy as chair of the commission.
Thank you.
We're fighting to see who would do it.
Okay.
Did you just nominate?
Me, yes.
Yeah. You want a second?
Yes, I did.
Yes, I second it.
I'm sorry?
Everybody
said
It's
Oh,
been
we all
second,
seconded
third,
it.
and fourth.
Okay, we all want you.
Okay. Well, we have to, is there a second? Okay, everybody's second, huh? I don't know who to say. Just say all of them?
By acclamation.
Okay. All right. So now we take a vote, right?
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, say no.
And I like to, I'm sorry, you have
It's
to
okay.
say that
So,
for vice chair.
Commissioner Chair McCoy has been elected again to serve as chair for fiscal year 2025. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. It takes a lot to be in this seat and have an understanding and be able to manage all the different personalities that we have up here and keep it cool. So.
It's not that hard, is it?
And it makes you appreciate, I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but it makes you appreciate the job that our elected officials have to do, because now I sit in this seat, so I see all the pressure on them, even though this is nothing compared to making decisions for the city of Fresno, but this is very important, right, to a lot of us. So being able to be chair and serve in this position, you get a better understanding of how decisions are made. If you didn't before, you kind of have a little bit of appreciation for our elected officials. So I tip my hat off to them because it's pretty tough. Thank you.
Can we make motions now?
Yes.
Did they happen? I'd like to nominate John Dolan for vice chair, or you probably did it already. I don't know if you.
Yes, I would like to also nominate John Dolan as vice chair as well.
Madam Chair, what if you have another person you want to nominate? How does that work?
Then we'll take separate votes.
Separate vote?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Correct, Angela?
Or do you just take one vote?
You take one vote, but you have to have you can give nominations, multiple nominations.
So Vice Chair Dolan has 3, and who would you like to nominate now?
Laura Ward for vice chair.
She has 1. Commissioner Korcharski, would you have a nomination? No, you can't just say no.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can have a discussion.
I can say this, having served in this august position for now 2 years, I am happy to step back and share the this throne of power with whoever would. And so, Commissioner Ward, I would second her nomination. How's that?
But unfortunately, wasn't there a second to the nomination of John B.
There was. There's multiple nominations on the floor now. They've all been seconded, I think is what's going on.
All right, guys, you gonna have us here to midnight?
No, I'm happy to withdraw. I can't withdraw my nomination because I didn't nominate myself, but I'm happy to cast my support to the other nominations.
Commissioner Ward's nomination is their nomination. Commissioner Korcharski.
Well, I'm uncertain which commissioners want the role.
I asked her. She said she'd be willing to do it.
So since there's multiple nominations, you would have to take it to vote. So it would be all in favor.
Okay.
That's how and then everybody would each get a chance to vote as to who they would like for the position.
All right.
And so I just want to, again, tell my fellow commissioners, I am happy to step back. So no matter who nominated and seconded, just going to say that.
Which, if he wants to withdraw, is.
Can I? Can I withdraw?
Yes, you can.
I'm going to withdraw my name, and thank you for your support, though, at the same time.
Well, then, all in favor of Commissioner Ward being vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any noes, say no. All right, congratulations, Commissioner Ward. You are vice chair. It is 7:18. Before I adjourn the meeting, I adjourn the meeting every night, every Monday, third Monday of the month that we have this meeting in memory of Dr. Francine Apuda, who has meant so much to a lot of us when we first started this commission. This is something that I do out the kindness of my heart it feels like her presence is still here. Even when we're talking she would correct us. Don't say y'all, don't say this, don't say that. So I still hear that. She meant a lot to us, so this is just something that I do in memory of her. Not that any other commissioners wouldn't do it, but that's just my way of honoring her and somehow letting her know that she touched a lot of us here on this commission, and she's deeply missed. So it is 7:19. I would like to adjourn this meeting in the memory of Dr. Francina Puda. She is missed. Thank you guys for sharing the evening with us. Enjoy your evening with your family. Thank you.